Hey y'all, it's Megan and today I'm sewing a Florence pattern. I'm sewing the Out Bodycon option. If you want to see other options sewn up, I'll link them down below. You're going to need to cut one front and back in your main fabric. Make sure that you mark the little markings on the bottom for your cutouts. You also need a front and back in your shelf bra pieces. Then you're going to need the shelf bra elastic and the shelf bra band. And then lastly, you're going to need to cut two of your skirts and the bodycon skirt. Again, make sure to mark the top for the cutouts, and then also if you're doing the side seam slits, make sure to cut those notches. Just a reminder, if you're doing the maxi length, you're going to need to sew the side seam slits so you'll be able to walk. First step is going to be to put your front and back pieces right sides together, and we are going to sew them together at the shoulder, creating the shoulder seam with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And you're going to do the same thing with your shelf bra pieces. Sew them together at the shoulder, creating the shoulder seam. Now you're going to lay your main bodice out flat with the right side up, and you're going to put the shelf bra right sides down so the right sides are together on top, aligning the shoulder seams and the raw edges. This is the plain version, so you're going to be sewing them together along the neckline and the arm side, both adding clear elastic to the seams. If you're doing the strap version, again, I'll link that video down below, but if you're doing the straps, you're only going to sew them together along the neckline, and then you will have to burrito roll the arm side. So you can sew this with a sewing machine or a serger. I prefer the sewing machine because you get a cleaner finish. So I sew the first seam with a 1/2 inch seam allowance here, and then I will go back and add the clear elastic inside of the seam so that the lining doesn't roll towards the other side. When you're using the clear elastic, make sure you exercise it a little bit just by stretching it before you add it. You don't want to pull your elastic too tight because you're going to get a little bit of gathering if you do that, but you do want to pull it taut with a little bit of tension so that it hugs your body while wearing it. You really don't want to skip the clear elastic in this pattern, especially on this plain version, because you're going to find that the bodice is going to want to fall without it. You're then going to flip that bodice right side out by just pulling it through the strap, and then you're going to sew the side seam. So you're going to open up that front bodice main and lining piece flat, and then you'll also open up the back main and lining piece and place it on top of the front pieces right sides together, aligning the raw edges and the seams. And then you will sew them together with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, creating the side seams. Then it's time to finish our shelf bra. So you're going to grab your elastic and overlap the ends by a 1/2 inch, and then just using a zigzag stitch, stitch it back and forth a few times to hold it together. Then you're going to take your shelf bra band and fold it in half, right sides together, and then stitch those short ends again with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, creating a loop. Now you're going to stick your elastic around your band, and you're going to fold the band over with the wrong sides together, enclosing that elastic. I'm going to go ahead and quarter the shelf bra band and elastic now, and I'm also going to quarter the edge of the shelf bra. Then you're going to put the band right side of the band to the wrong side of your shelf bra and stitch them together with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Once they're stitched together, if you would like to, you can press it towards the shelf bra and top stitch it in place. Flip that shelf bra towards the wrong side, and we're going to work on the bottom edge of your bodice and hemming that cut out portion. So make sure you have that scant 1/2 inch marking cut on the front and back bodices. And we're going to be hemming that opening with clear elastic. The opening is going to be the larger side without the shoulder, if you're wondering which side you're going to hem. So you're going to take clear elastic, and again with a 1-to-1 ratio, or just putting a little bit of tension, you're going to stitch the elastic, not cutting anything off if you're using your serger, right on the edge of the wrong side of your fabric. Once you get the elastic stitched on, we are going to press it towards the wrong side by a 1/2 inch and edge stitch that elastic in place. Here's what it looks like once it is hemmed. And you can go ahead and set your bodice aside, and we'll quickly sew our skirt together. So you're going to place the right sides of the skirt together, aligning the raw edges and your notches if you're doing the side seam split. I'm making a maxi version here, so I am doing a side seam split, so I'm going to sew it from the top to the notch. Now you can have a slit on both sides if you want, or just one side, whichever you would like. Once you have the side seam sewn, if you're doing the slit option, then you will press a 1/2 inch to the wrong side on the unsewn side seam and edge stitch that in place. If you use your serger, then I do like to just cut into the seam a little bit so it makes it easier to hem. Now we're going to go ahead and hem the top of the cutout of the skirt as well. And we're doing it the same way that you hemmed the bodice portion. Because we cut the skirt on the seam, you're going to see 4 markings on the top of your skirt. You only need 2 of those markings. So grab your bodice and double check that you are using the 2 markings. So you see I'm going to use this one on the far edge and the same on the back. Since you can sew your bodice either directions, you do want to check yours and not just rely on mine. So you're gonna hem this the same as you did the bodice portion by stitching clear elastic to the wrong side of that edge without any seam allowance, and then you're going to press that edge towards the wrong side by 1/2 inch and edge stitch it in place. Now it's time to attach the bodice to the skirt on the unhemmed portion. So with the right sides together, matching those scant 1/2 inch marks, you're going to place the bodice and the skirt right sides together. So you're going to match the edge of those markings and then also the side seam. And this should be a 1-to-1 ratio. You can use your serger at this step, but I prefer my sewing machine because you get a little bit of a cleaner finish. If you do use your serger, then I would suggest to go back and just stitch the ends where you have that hem portion and the skirt and the bodice seam matching, just so you have a really clean seam right there. Then you are going to press that seam towards your bodice, and we're going to edge stitch this in place. What I like to do is start right where you hemmed your elastic on the bodice and then continue in one line, edge stitching that seam in place until you get to the other side. I find that looks the cleanest once you're done. The final step is just going to be hemming the bottom of your skirt. So you're going to press a 1/2 inch towards the wrong side and edge stitch it in place to hold the hem. Once you have your skirt hemmed, then you are done and your Florence is complete. If you have any questions, you can leave them down below and I'll try to answer. And as always, if you make a Florence, we would love to see it posted in our Facebook group or on Instagram at Made for Mermaids.